Welcome to Not the Retirement Show. I'm Robin.
And I'm Bill.
And today we're talking about how retirement is not for sissies. Let's face it, due to advances in healthcare, women all around the world are living longer than ever before, which means they have more years in their post-working life than ever before. And yet, I don't really think that people, and women in particular, have caught on to the fact that you really need to plan for this huge new phase of your life.
Well, I think, we've talked before about grandchildren, and I mean, obviously, grandchildren become probably in many cases the focal point of, particularly the mother, obviously, or a mother, as she gets older. And I mean, clearly, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. That's a pleasure and a joy. I mean, I have 4 grandchildren, and sometimes they are a pleasure and a joy, sometimes maybe they're not, but it is a pleasure. But I think if your entire world revolves around your grandchildren, to be honest, I think you're missing out on something.
Women really need to take a holistic view of the rest of their lives. And you need to plan for every aspect of your life. You need to plan for your health care. You need to plan for how you're going to care for yourself in your later years. You need to plan for how you're going to keep your mind engaged, how you're going to expand your personal development, if you will. And you need to at least understand how your family finances work, whether or not you are the one who is personally managing them on behalf of the family or not.
Well, I think that's a big problem, to be perfectly honest, because unfortunately, things can happen in life. And if the partner, is no longer there for whatever reason, and the one that's left who has not been looking after, family finances, all of a sudden finds that they are right in the middle of it. They're basically saying, whoa, what do I do now? How do I run the house and the finances, the family finances, basically, if I'm on my own? I think there are countless numbers of people who are in that position. I mean, we've come across people like that, in some of the work that we've done within our sort of, call it retirement type of presentations. People say, well, I'm in that position. I'm in that position.
Let me tell you a really quick story. This is entirely true. I was in a hotel in America and standing at the elevators, and it's a crowded, busy hotel, so there's a bit of a wait. And there is an older woman standing next to me, and she's clutching the hotel bill. And it's very clear just by her demeanor and her clothes, this woman is very well off. And she's looking very concerned, but she's not saying anything. We're waiting, we're waiting. Finally, she thrusts her hotel charges at me and says, look at all these taxes. Is this normal? And I looked at the bill, and there was a hotel tax, an occupancy tax, a city tax, a state tax, who knows? And there were a lot of charges because she'd been in a suite. And I looked at the bill and I said, yeah, as far as I can tell, these look like normal things. And she goes, oh, this is all so confusing. My husband is no longer well, and very suddenly I'm in charge of all the family finances. She was completely overwhelmed. And what I learned from that experience was, that can happen to anybody. That can happen to anybody of any level of income or lifestyle. And you need to be prepared in advance by at least understanding how things work in your life.
Well, I don't necessarily think that people need to rush out and figure out how to use Excel spreadsheets, stuff like that.
No, just basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can do stuff in the back of an envelope sometimes. Particularly in your later years, you've got probably a fixed income, pensions or whatever that may be, but, and your expenses are probably fixed. I mean, hopefully maybe your mortgage has been paid off, or, there's nothing like that. You've got utilities, you've got groceries. I mean, it's not that difficult to sort of jot down those expenses so that, for every month, you say, well, okay, this will be the income this month that I'm going to get through pensions or savings or whatever that may be. These are going to be my expenses. Therefore, I can look at the bottom line if you wish. Okay. So I don't think, you need to go out and start taking courses at college to understand how to run, as I say, things like Excel spreadsheets. But please, I mean, really, you got to get to grips with it. And I mean, we're talking in the situation where the other person, the partner, isn't there. But, I think it applies regardless. I mean, I think if there's still two in the house, I think it's always a good idea to have a pretty good idea what your expenses are.
Well, they always say two heads are better than one. And maybe if one person in your relationship has always been responsible for the family finances, but as you age, your needs change, your level of mobility changes, your expenses change, and there's really no downside to spreading it all out on the dining room table and looking at it together and saying, are we really doing the best we can? Are we making whatever amount of money we have go in the best possible way? Are we really spending it how we really want to spend it?
I think, again, we've heard so many stories of people saying, my goodness me, do we really spend that much on whatever that may be? I didn't realize that. Things like, like house insurance, for example, I mean, it's paid and that's the end of it sort of thing. But perhaps the other person doesn't realize that, there is house insurance. So, I mean, so many times you come across that type of situation of people just simply saying, whoa, really? We spend that amount? Or, we spend that amount on groceries or whatever. Paying attention, finding out about some of those numbers I think can help the partnership, to be perfectly honest.
Absolutely. It makes it easier to understand what you can and cannot realistically afford if you're well informed. And the other thing is, this isn't a one and done conversation. As you age, as you progress further and further into the future, you need to have this conversation, I would say a bare minimum of once a year, and reassess and course correct as your life advances.
Well, I think, again, we use the word budget, and a lot of people get turned off by the use of the word budget. I don't want to budget, or I don't know how to budget, so therefore I won't budget. Fair enough. I mean, if that's your thing, then don't. But, have some idea what your future expenses are going to be and whether you can afford it. And especially when, we've talked about having grandchildren. I mean, from nowhere, expenses can pop up that, they were not in your budget, but they were in, shall we say, someone else's budget, and all of a sudden you're sort of being asked to contribute, and you say, well, whoa, wait a minute. You say, okay, well, so all of a sudden the grandchildren have now appeared suddenly in your budget, and you go,
Well, sometimes it's not even a case of having been asked to help out. Sometimes you just see that they need something, that life would be so much better for the family, for the grandchild, if they had a certain something, and you want to know, can you realistically offer it? Or how could you make that work inside your own budget?
It's not all about the grandkids. you have a life, you're going to have a long life. Get to grips with some of those issues. Personal development, you mentioned that, which is, a critical statement, of course. Those are things that you should be looking at for your life. So, okay, we'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.